WSU. Live from Zeppo's, alongside Cougar head coach Mike Leach, here's the voice of the Cougars, Matt Chazanow.
Great to be with you here at Zeppo's. It is off of an incredible win over Oregon State, 54-53, and for the first time ever, the Cougs are bowl eligible for the fifth straight year, an incredible 5 straight years, half a decade of bowling here. The Cougars take on the Huskies. Of course, it's Apple Cup week, and we will relive the Oregon State game. We'll take a break and come back. I'm pretty sure, I think Mike Leach is bowling, and so what we'll do is we'll get Leach and we'll throw a headset on him in just a moment here. We'll relive the Beaver game and then come back. We're live here at Zeppo's. Packed house, as always. It's the Cougs and the Huskies Apple Cup week. We'll be right back in a moment.
Cougs, Beavers.
Prepare for Oregon State because we're going bowling. I'm guaranteeing that because we're going to win next week.
Snap back knee-high for Luton. Screaming off the edges. Stoney throws a fluttering ball. Hit as he thrown. It's pulled down by the Cougs. An interception. Bryce Beekman with the pick. Gordon has time. Flicks it out left flat. Patman dragging across. Slides down toward the goal line. Inside the pylon. Touchdown. 12 yards to number 12. And it's 7-6 with 2:17 left first quarter. Snap back Gordon. Dump off over the middle. In stride. Touchdown Renard Bell. Caught it at his shoulder. Pulls it in and sprints home. And it's 13 points for the Cougs, down by 1 with 9:24 to play in the half. Shovel pass here to McIntosh. Room to run 30. Accelerates 20-yard line. Shoves his way through a tackle at the 10. Dion McIntosh. Touchdown. 33 yards for Dion. And it's 20-14. Washington State leads it by 6. Gordon on a slant complete. Jackson Jr. sprinting 15-yard line. Has a line at the 10. And he blows by the Beavers. Touchdown. 36 yards for Calvin Jackson Jr. And the Cougars lead it 27-24. Left hashes takes the snap. Waist high blitzes on. Gordon wants the end zone. Finds his target. Touchdown. Renard Bell wide side of the field right. And there it is. An all-time Pac-12 record holder. No one has thrown more touchdowns in a single season in Pac history than Anthony Gordon. It's his 44th. And the Cougars lead it 34-24. Snap back Gordon, give here to Bourgie. Touchdown, a 1-yarder. Right up the gut. And on the drive where Gordon breaks Gardner's yardage record, it's Max Bourgie on the ground with the capper. 41-32. Cougars up. 9:52 to play in the ballgame. Snap back Luton. Pumps once. Goes deep. Wide open target into his hands in stride. Jamar Jefferson. Touchdown. 3rd and goal from the 2. Snap back to Luton. Play action. Finds Jefferson. Touchdown on the 2-yard toss. A play fake to him and then a pass to him to the right side. And Oregon State has scored 3 touchdowns in just about 3 minutes. And it's 52-42 Beavers.
Yeah, as Washington State offense has got to respond and respond in a quick way. I mean, now the clock becomes your enemy.
Snap back to Gordon. Dumps it off over the middle on a drag. It's Des Patman with the grab. And he helicopters in for a touchdown. And we've got ourselves a ball game. 2:10 left in the 4th. It's 53-48. Snap back to Luton on 4th and 4. Tosses it right. And it's incomplete. Turnover on downs. Oregon State a hyper-aggressive play. And Washington State turns him over. With 1:10 left. No timeouts. Here we go. Gordon toss over the middle. Complete Arcanado. And he sprints out of bounds at the 45 in Beaver territory. Tosses it over the middle. Tay Martin with the grab. First down. And he's tackled at the 30. Has a decent pocket. Throws it deep. It's complete. Caught by Winston. Holds it in. And a flag comes out at the 10-yard line. 53-48 Beavers. A chance for a storybook ending to senior day, and Anthony Gordon, maybe his final play in his Cougar uniform here at home. Winston to the right, Arcanado, slot left, Bell and Martin to the left. 1st and goal from the 2. 4 seconds left, no timeouts. Snap back Gordon, they run it, Bourgie up the middle, touchdown! Touchdown Max Bourgie! 1 second left, Cougars on top over the Beavers, 54-53, they ran it down the middle, and Max Bourgie scores! And there it is, and Washington State survives and wins its 5th straight bowl-eligible season, 54-53. And Eric Mealy comes in screaming here. Eric Mealy says, Eric Mealy screaming to get the bowling balls out.
More from Zeppos after this on the Washington State Sports Network from Learfield IMG College.
At U-
Cougar Coaches Show. Give us a call on the Bookie call-in line at 866-COUG-TALK. That's 1-866-268-4825. Now, back to the show.
Back here live at Zeppos, we have Coach Leach with us here. It is Apple Cup week. It is a team Thanksgiving. It's Thanksgiving meal night here at Zeppos, and the football team is, what, are they bowling now, Coach? Is that what's going on here?
Well, some are still bowling, but some of them have gone to enjoy their night and probably fall asleep after eating all that turkey and all that food you got listed there.
Is that real? Is the tryptophan thing real where you eat the turkey and you just kind of pass out after? Or is it just like you've overeaten and so you're digesting and have to pass out? What are your thoughts on that?
I don't know the chemistry of it. I've always thought it had to do with volume,
Right.
but
Kinda
I don't know
stuff it in.
for sure.
133, got the stats here from Zeppos on the football team. 133 pounds of turkey. This is to feed the football team. 92 pounds of mashed potatoes, 75 pounds of mac and cheese, 75 pounds of stuffing. There were 36 pies baked, and there were 250 Hawaiian rolls, among some others. 30 pounds of ham, 35 pounds of corn. It's a lot of food.
Yeah, that's outstanding. That's an amazing amount. That's an incredible amount, and I want to thank Karna D for making me a blackberry pie, too.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks to Karna's one of the Zeppos owners. And she baked a blackberry pie. Do you have a Thanksgiving favorite here? Turkey, ham, mashed potatoes. What's your
turkey's? Turkey's definitely number one. And although I like ham a lot, I'm not big into commingling ham with turkey. Eat more turkey that time of year. Like the potatoes, like the corn, mac and cheese. I'll take a little bit of the cheese, get the taste in my mouth, then I move on to the stuffing. Sweet potatoes, that's a no-fly zone there. Green beans, I'll eat those along with the corn. Although, again, we mentioned collard greens would be preferable. Stuffing, I have a little, and I like the crispy part of the stuffing. Hawaiian rolls, as good as they are, I generally opt for the other starches there. Pies, maybe a little bit of the apple at the end after a few hours. cranberry, I get a scoop of the cranberry.
There it is. That sounds like a full plate right there, maybe a couple. Got some questions rolling in here on Twitter for you, Coach, and we'll roll through these, and then we'll talk a little ball and go through some other questions, probably be written in here at Zeppo's as we go through the hour. Lynn Carmichael, who actually was up in the booth, he won a live auction bid earlier this year, or the previous year, I should say, and got the chance to join us up in the broadcast booth. It was really fun to have Lynn up there. He wants to know if it will be easier or harder to have a fully focused team after last week's game. Does a game like the Oregon State game kind of affect focus for the next game?
I think it kind of creates energy for practice and things like that. Everybody's excited, but there is this: you have to let that game go right away because all that counts is preparation for the next one.
All right, Lynn, thank you for that crazy game, 54-53. Before we get to some other questions, let's talk about that Beaver game a little bit. Up and down and up 11 and then down 11 and a game-winning drive and an onside kick that was drilled into one of the Cougar cleats and fires back at the Beavers, and they wind up getting it. What was that game like as you were up and down? What a roller coaster it was.
There was a lot of play the next play. Had to play the next play, and I thought we did hit a little spot in the fourth where we were a little dormant, and then late in the fourth, I thought we played really well. We played together, played really hard, played well.
606 passing yards. How good was the offensive line? 1 sack allowed on 70 pass attempts for Anthony Gordon, and that last big push with 4 seconds left to get Max into the end zone there. How good was the O-line against the Beavers?
I thought they played well. I thought all 5 of them played well, and then also, the sack, even though Anthony's bailed them out of a number of sacks this year by getting rid of the ball, I thought that Gordon held the ball on that sack, so I kind of credit Gordon with that one.
And how about Deion McIntosh? 6 receptions, 93 yards, and a touchdown. Deion had his best game as a Coug, didn't he?
Yeah, I thought he did a good job. He's explosive. He'll do a good job blocking, too, and then kind of a crafty runner, good at making people miss.
Yeah, he had a long of 41 yards and was really good, caught that touchdown as well. Deion with a big game, and 83 plays run by the Cougs, 73 plays run by the Beavers, 107 points scored. I mean, that's about as wild as a game as there's going to be anywhere. That was just madness in a lot of ways. Crazy game.
Yeah, I thought that, and there's plenty of things for us to improve on in that game too. But it was good that we slugged our way through it.
No question. All right, Lynn, thanks for that question. We may talk a little bit more about the Beavers. I'm rolling through Twitter. These are just coming in here. On your own staff, as Drew Holling said, Drew decided he wanted to participate in the show. Not that we advocate such activity, but he asks, who wins in a fight, Super Dave or him, if they were to battle it out? And I did a little Twitter poll over the last hour. If he and Super Dave were to get in Bull in the Ring, 73 votes, Drew Holling said, was the 60% victor.
Is that Super Dave 1 or Super Dave 2?
Key question. This is Super Dave Emmerich, not Super Dave Nickel. To be clear, this is Super Dave Emmerich.
Super Dave Emmerich.
And Drew, if they were to get into it.
Well, I would have to go with age and treachery defeats youth and enthusiasm on that one.
Okay, that's a vote for Super Dave. Sorry, Drew. Let's see here. We've been through Stax Edwards, white meat or dark meat. So it was last week we covered a little bit.
Yeah, white meat.
White meat. Yep, that's kind of a classic. Now I don't know what this question means. I think I do, but I'm not sure. Have you ever participated in turkey bowling? Coug Czar asks. I don't know what turkey bowling is.
I'm not sure what that is either. If you do, I don't know. Maybe frozen turkey. It would be fun.
It'd
be like
frozen turkeys?
Well, it'd be like the mullet toss at the Floribama Saloon.
I don't think I know what that is either. What's the?
Well, they get mullets and you sling them as far as you can. Whoever goes furthest wins. See, and maybe you do that with turkeys.
Yeah, maybe you just roll the turkey. Somebody posted a picture of the cursive Cougar helmet. If you're in person, you can, or watching online. There's a picture of it here on the phone. What are your thoughts on the script helmet? Do you have any strong opinion on that?
I remember it for sure. I like it. My favorite one, though, has always been the red one with the Coug logo on it.
With the white Coug logo, or the crimson helmet with the
crimson helmet, white Coug logo.
There you go. All right, Will, thank you for that that picture there. Dot Coug wants to know what you think about the English language.
Better than average.
Yeah. That's from Dot Coug. Thank you for that one. All right, one word. If you get a write-in question and if you come in person, Steve King, this isn't a question, it seems to be a comment. One word, quote-unquote, Bourgie cam. I guess he wants Max to wear a camera on his helmet as he runs, which would be fun to watch, I suppose, after.
You'd see a lot of people's kneecaps, and you'd know what it would be like to play football about 3 feet off the ground.
Yeah, really low. He does have really, really low pads.
Plays low, plays low, plays behind his pads. I think that's one of the best things he does. Plays really low behind his pads, still has great hips in that position, and then as much power as possible when he hits something.
Is that taught, or is that kind of natural? Do guys need to? Is that a technique that Eric Mealy's worked with?
No, he kind of did that from the beginning. It's encouraged, though, certainly.
Well, we're going to take a break here. We are up against it. We'll take a break. We're live here at Zeppo's. It's the Cougs taking on the Huskies here. We'll talk Apple Cup in just a bit here live with Coach Leach.
An open letter to
The U.S. Bank Cougar Coaches Show. Put your trust in a bank that's been focused on serving the people and businesses in Washington and all across the country since 1863. That's U.S. Bank, equal housing lender, member FDIC.
Back here live at Zeppo's, we are talking football. Apple Cup week, short week road Friday game. A tough combination against this Husky team. As always, the short week road games are tough ones. Got a few write-in questions for you here. We'll go with a little bit of football here. Let's talk a little bit of defense. Travion Brown, Cosmas Quete. Haven't seen a ton of Tyrese Ross, a lot of them in special teams, but the youth of this defense has been really good. R.J. Stone is one of the league leaders in quarterback hurries. Quete, Stone, Brown, Ross, they're all freshmen on this team, and they're pretty darn good players, aren't they, Coach?
Yeah, they're definitely good players. We got them into service pretty early, and they do a good job. And down the road, I think they're going to be great players, and they're still emerging as far as what they're able to do. But no, I think it's. I think they've done a good job, and they keep getting better all the time.
Have you ever had players, especially on the defensive side, have to, I don't know if you can even tell them to do this, but kind of dial it back in practice? Like, is there such a thing as too much hitting in practice in terms of some guys who are like teeing off on some of the receivers or even scout team guys where it to a point where maybe it's not really all that productive?
Oh, yeah, you can have that for sure. The biggest thing is you want to be full speed but not full contact because, you're planning to play with these guys that week. And so you do want to be full speed. You don't want to do anything to limit speed within reason. And then the most important thing, you want people to stay up. People are going to get hit, no question. But you want them to stay up, not diving at ankles or anything like that.
So, which brings to mind a play in the game where the quarterback, Jake Luton for Oregon State, he slid down, the quarterback slide, the kind of conventional QB slide where he's like a baseball player sliding into second base.
Which I'm not sure is a very good idea, by the way, but that's the way they say you're supposed to.
What do you think that should be?
Well, first of all, they dock you the second you start the slide, so you're immediately cheated out of 5 yards.
Right.
So right off the top, you're cheated out of 5 yards. But that's how the rule's written, and they're saying, well, it's going to protect the quarterback. Well, I don't think it does unless that quarterback wants to lose 5 yards, and most of them don't. And then the other thing, you'd be surprised how many of these guys can't slide. Something has happened, I guess maybe sports have gotten specialized or whatever. Some of these guys obviously never played baseball or had a slip and slide as a child, okay? And I've actually thought with quarterbacks, especially watching some of them, who will remain nameless, but I've had two that are the worst sliders of all time.
They can't slide.
Well, they'll start to go and they'll catch something, and then they go end over end, and they're lucky they don't break something. I mean, I've had guys that are more inclined to get injured sliding than if they were to stand up as straight, tall as they possibly could. I guess I kind of, and I'm not sure that this isn't the best way as far as safety, too, that you're not a little safer sliding, protecting the ball, sliding face first, because you're getting your head low. And then the other thing, and you know where you're going. And then the other thing, for all these regulations, you'll notice that they almost always get hit anyway. And then I'm not sure that's not the best way, although it is alarming that for how seasoned some of these athletes are, some of the bad sliding technique I've seen around the country with, they'll slide in their knee or their foot or their ankle or some cleat gets caught, and pretty soon they're rolling around like a tumbleweed. And it's like the most unathletic thing that you'll see. But nevertheless, and then, if you got nowhere to go, you want to button up and get little for sure.
And Luton had a cleat for his slide.
Oh, the other thing, your knees are exposed if you slide. First of all, you get hit anyway. So then in the tangle, body's falling over you or somebody's helmet, I think it makes your knees vulnerable too.
And you're kind of pretzeled up there with your legs.
Yeah. I don't happen to buy that. So.
Well, which brings to mind, to your point of getting hit anyway, it's really hard for a defender to pull up. If a guy's sliding in, you're running in full speed. You'd love to get a big hit on the quarterback if that's an opportunity. Now, it's generally illegal once they slide that way, but I forget who it was. It might have been Skyler. It might have been Jihad. I may have been somebody else. They avoided it against Jake Luton in the ballgame. He kind of ran out to the Cougar sideline and slid down, and one of the guys leapt over on top. Easier said than done. I mean, that's a really hard thing to do to avoid the QB.
Once you're engaged, it's pretty tough. You better try to maneuver while you're in the air, and that's kind of hard.
Yeah, I mean, you're full momentum, and that gets into a whole other targeting discussion, because that's often the result is guys are going in helmets.
Well, they ought to get rid of targeting as a rule too, and this is and I think a lot of coaches agree with this, and I think a lot of officials agree with this, because it can't be even-handedly legislated. Almost never is a guy deliberately targeting. and then they try to nuance it out, to something the naked eye can't see, and then the other thing, I don't see where they've prevented any injuries from it either. I can't think of any where they've prevented any injuries from it.
The funny thing about it also is, for what it's worth, if it were to be intentional, if a guy crown of the helmet clearly ear holes the guy, some guys in the NFL are
and then if they do that, but you got it covered with unnecessary roughness.
And I guess they're not they're legislated all equally, but they're clearly not all the same penalties, right? Like if
no, and then they throw the guy out of the game. I remember one time. And I couldn't help it. We this was years ago. We played Idaho. They called targeting on the Idaho safety, which I thought was just a horrible call, just an awful call. And so I actually called our conference up and said, "Listen, can we petition and ask that he not be removed from the next game?" Because I was thinking about the player. I'd liked the way he played. I thought he was a tough kid. I don't know his name or anything, but it was kind of late in the game. And so then they call him for targeting. Well, he's got to miss the next game. Well, that's absurd in my opinion because, first of all, I didn't think it was targeting, number one. And then our conference said, well, unfortunately, we might have a little say if it was our officials, but it wasn't. And so you'll have to talk to them. I don't recall if I called their conference officials or not. I think I might have had Dave do it, but anyway, I think that kid should be suspended for the game, and then a lot of these things, they say there's this, there's that, and the other thing, and we want to add a rule upon a rule upon a rule. You have unnecessary roughness, call unnecessary roughness, or if you think it's really egregious, double the penalty. I don't think the guy should miss the game. And then a lot of officials, if they speak to you honestly off the record, they say it's very hard to see. It's impossible to officiate. And if I could think of a bunch of people that I think that it had saved and prevented from getting injured, well, I can't think of any.
Is there a rule in rugby where you have to wrap up? Isn't that part of
they have a deal if you hit too high. They'll penalize you if you hit too high. And then the other thing, in rugby, you're inclined to wrap up because that guy can pass it at any time. He can flip it back and pass it at any time. The other thing, you don't have pads on. So sometimes lazy tackling. Sometimes you do it out of desperation, and it's what's needed. But in football, sometimes there's a temptation to have lazy tackling because your head's fortified with a helmet, shoulders all shoulder padded up, and you're less likely to get hurt. So they'll lay out. Well, and you'll see guys miss tackles that way, where you want to eat up as much space as you can, and then engage at the last second because that is the best form and ensures the best tackle. And I think out of necessity, and believe me, you think about it out there without pads, you have to tackle with pretty good fundamentals to avoid hurting yourself because you don't want to hit them with the top of your shoulder because that hurts. And then so you want to hit them with your face and your chest square, and by the way, figure out somewhere to put your head. And so I think just by virtue of not having pads, there's a better tackling technique because you're really conscious of that space and not just laying out and slamming your head into somebody's knee or something like that. But
is it counterintuitively, safer is the wrong word, but is it more tactful, of course, without pads? But is there anything, I guess, football players could learn from rugby players as with technique and effectiveness and how to, and maybe where the rule of targeting is trying to wind its way to?
I think your body position's in a better place, and then not a lot of targeting in rugby.
Right.
Believe me, nobody wants to slam their head into something hard, not if you don't have a helmet on, and then, and the thing is that I always found with rugby is nobody having pads kind of mitigated a lot of things because, you hear guys that have never played rugby. Well, I don't want to play rugby because, I don't want to get hit without pads. Well, keep in mind, those guys hitting you don't have pads either. So the hits are different as well.
Interesting. For the world's most refreshing beer, 21 means 21. Celebrate responsibly with Coors Light, Coors Brewing Company, Golden, Colorado. We're up against a break. We'll take it. We're live here with Coach Leach at Zeppo's on Apple Cup Week.
At Boeing, we
Live from Zeppo's alongside Cougar head coach Mike Leach. Here's Matt Chazanow.
Back in live here at Zeppo's. It is Washington State Apple Cup week. We just had a gentleman walk up, talk to us about Russell Wilson sliding in. Russell, who was a baseball player, was a pitcher. And I actually saw him at NC State before he transferred. I was calling a game, and this huge, muscly pitcher walks out to the mound, and everybody's looking at each other like, what? We were kind of swooping in as the national broadcast hadn't covered the Wolfpack, and realized this guy throws 93 to 94, mainly just gas, not much else, and there he turns out to be the quarterback of the Badgers and now the Seahawks. But he's a big, thick quarterback with maybe some dubious sliding ability potentially. But I haven't seen him slide a ton, but apparently that's the scout. That's the baseball scout.
Interestingly enough, I guess we have this in common. I broadcast I think I broadcast 2 Russell Wilson games.
Oh, did you?
I interviewed him twice, and when I was working with CBS, the one I remember the most was NC State versus East Carolina, I believe it was.
Yeah.
NC State versus East Carolina. I broadcast that game. Of course, Russell Wilson was at NC State then. And I interviewed him another time, and I'm trying to think what exactly. It might have been when I was on the radio, but the wild thing is he's a brilliant guy. Incredibly articulate. His whole family played professional sports, and then they're college presidents and judges and lawyers and doctors. And then, it's like of all the people, because I only did TV for a year, but uniquely I did interview Russell Wilson
That's
twice.
funny. That's funny.
How about that?
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Yeah, he is a really well-spoken guy. Did you like it? Did you like the TV, kind of being on the media side of it, the TV side and radio side?
Well, you go in there, and it's kind of funny because and some of these guys, I don't know if they're particularly modest about that role, but I got in there, I said, listen, I've studied forever about football. I know about that, but I don't know about broadcast. People go to, like, say, Syracuse or somewhere.
Yeah, sure.
For a broadcast. Actually,
how'd you pick that out?
Your partners are always from Syracuse. Well, where is he from? Oh, Syracuse.
Yeah.
All right, here we go.
Oh,
all
boy.
right. And then I got to where I just turned to him. So how was Syracuse? and so then, yeah, I liked the worst thing about TV is you're scrambling to an airport all the time.
Yeah.
And if you went to the same site, I think it'd be pretty cool because you'd know all the restaurants. Then you sit and watch the games with your buddies, and you talk about it, on the air because you get to know the other people. And then, and so I think that'd be pretty fun. Seeing the stadiums was cool, but that was back when the airports were even worse than they are now. And currently they're an unmitigated disaster. So they were worse then, so you can imagine what that was like. And then, so that was the most difficult thing about that. And then TV, you can give a quick little snip of it, but then you got to move on. And you really don't have that time, and you're passing the conversation back and forth. And so TV, I had Roger Twyble, who's one of the greatest broadcasters ever. And whatever Roger told me to do, I did. If Roger said, by the way, this would be a good idea, I did it. There may have been one or two things that wasn't a good idea. I don't care. Roger told me to do it, so that's the way it's going to be. And then on the radio, I had Jack Arute. And Jack Arute is an expert in radio. So anything Jack Arute told me, I did. and it was funny because initially the radio show was built around me being on, but Jack Arute was adult supervision because they didn't know who the other person was going to be. But Jack Arute was a perfect partner for me, and was total adult supervision with regard to that. And what I liked about radio, one, you could go on for a while. The other thing is, as you're surprised in the interviews and questions, stuff like that, is more genuine as far as, if you were surprised, you're actually surprised, And it was less scripted and choreographed, so I really liked the radio.
Yeah, there's a lot of premeditation with TV because of graphics packages and things that are hard to produce on the fly. They kind of have there's a narrative that's predetermined, and, you've got to go with that. And if the game goes widely different than that.
Yeah, then you just do something different anyway.
That's
probably why I was only on 1 year.
We got some questions written in here. We kind of know the answer to this, and it's on this question. It says you sort of answered this already. Do you have a say in uniform combinations? What kind of call do you have there?
I deliberately have no say in uniform combinations because of all the decisions I have to make on any given week. It's difficult enough for me to figure out what I'm going to wear, so I certainly don't want to worry about what anybody else is going to wear. And when I first got here, I don't know who decides now, to be perfectly honest. That's an interesting question. I don't know who decides now. Bill Moose liked to decide, and he always decided, which I thought that was a fantastic job for him. And then Pat might decide. I don't know who decides the uniform. Maybe Milt decides.
Might be Milt. Yeah,
I don't know who decides.
I don't know. Since Max Bourgie is another question here, write-in question for those listening. Since Max Bourgie is a fan favorite, can you give us your favorite Bourgie story? Do you have a favorite Max Bourgie story?
I don't have a favorite, but the one that comes to mind, the quickest, most memorable, was yesterday. We're hard counting a play, hard count where you see if the defense jumps off sides. And
this is on Rogers Field there.
During practice. And Max isn't in. Max is he wasn't in that play. And so Liam Ryan jumps off sides, pass sets, all vigorously. Then, of course, he does the stuff where he throws his fist. And then And then, of course, Coach Miller says, get out, you get out, and then puts another guy in. And then Max goes up to Liam and says something like, you're really good at that play. and then, of course, Liam punches him in the helmet. Yeah, so that was pretty good.
He unafraid. What is he giving up?
You got to stay out of arm's reach if you say that to Liam.
Yeah, that's a long reach, though. That's kind of my point. Liam's what, a good 6'7" or something like that? 6'6" at least.
Yeah, and if he's far enough away, he wouldn't catch Max, I don't think.
No, Max would probably scamper away. Hey, speaking of which, on the offensive line, Jarrett Kingston, 6'5", 296-pound redshirt freshman from Anderson, California, backup left guard to Robert Valencia. Jarrett Kingston, he's played a little bit more of late. They'll kind of shovel him in and out there with Rob at that left guard spot. Mason Miller really likes Jarrett Kingston, doesn't he? And he may play a lot in future years.
Yeah, he will play a lot in future years, I predict, and he's a good player and loves football. That's where it all starts. Most important thing to be a good player really is to love football, and he loves football. Loves contact, doesn't shy away from it, and I think he's going to be a good player. He's gotten bigger the whole time. I've got a lot of family in Anderson, California, so I know people are tough there. It's up there by Mount Shasta, Mount Lass, and all that, and so they have car shows all the time. And I think Jarrett's family actually races him some, but anyway.
So Jarrett at left guard, and then I look forward to talking to him about potential car races in the future if we have a discussion. And Brian Green, and I'm going over this because there's two seniors on the offensive line, Robert Valencia at left guard, Freddie Malangoa at center, who's at 37 straight starts. They're both seniors, so this will be their final regular season game here against the Huskies. Brian Green being the next center on the depth chart right now, 6'3", 300-pound redshirt sophomore from Yakima is the current backup at center. How's Brian doing?
He does a good job. He, he's one of those guys came as a walk-on, continued to get bigger, refused to leave. He's one of those guys that just refused to not be in the lineup. I mean, he just, when he first got here, he said, well, he's shorter than we'd like. He's lighter than we'd like. And then, but he'd just win his battles, could snap good, was a real smart guy, didn't screw up very much. And he's just one of those guys that, if you try to pry him out of the lineup with somebody that, looks better to, as far as the eye test, he just beats him down,
It could be the future of the Cougar offensive line next year, which has been so good this year, only allowed 13 sacks all year. This is a write-in question here for you, and then we are up against a break. When you recruit players, what do you look for? What is most important to you in a recruit?
Well, I think you start with toughness. Are they a tough person? Because you're planning to work them extremely hard. Do they love football? You want them to really like it because they're going to work incredibly hard. And also football, after, say, the first or second game, everybody's playing it in some level of soreness and pain. And so you want a guy that it means something enough to him to push through that. And then after that, I look for fast guys, and then definitely prefer smart guys. Smart guys can adjust quicker. They're, they're more coachable. They can, reason through something if it's not quite perfectly drawn up. And of course, if you're lucky enough to get all that, I mean, you'll be the best team that there is. But anyway, so you start with that.
We'll take a break. We'll come back. We've got a caller. We've got a question from a caller. We've got a couple other questions that have rolled in. We'll come back here live at Zeppo's here with Coach Leach on Apple Cup Week.
You may be eager to break
Preview Coors Light, the world's most refreshing beer.
It is that part of the show. Let's roll through the Huskies a little bit here. Talk some Apple Cup back here live with Coach Leach. Let's talk Husky defense. They are led by Joe Tryon and Levi Onzarike on the D-line. Their safety, Miles Bryant, is an all-pack second-teamer last year. Elijah Molden, same deal, all-pack second team. They've got a lot of talent back, and they always do. What do you think of this Husky defense here when you're trying to get things whittled down here for the game on Friday?
Well, I think they're really talented. I mean, they're always really talented. They're always a really talented group, and or at least the NFL seems to think so. And then they're big, strong. I think they're well coached, and and that's kind of their identity, defense. As far as being big and physical. So, we got to go out and play good.
How about all four of their corners are freshmen? Three of them are true freshmen, and then their backup right corner is a redshirt freshman. It's just rare you see that many. Big recruits, and they're good players, and they're productive, but it's just rare that they're pretty young on the boundaries there.
Yeah, they're not. They're not as young as we are, but this isn't as old as some of the Husky teams have been. They got quite a few juniors, not as many seniors maybe as they've had in the past.
Right. Now, mind you, they're second in the league in passing yards allowed per game. So the freshman, not that that's a deficiency in the way they've been performing. They've been really good. How about on the flip side? Savon Ahmed, Richard Newton, Jacob Eason, throwing to Hunter Bryant, ton of offensive talent. Don't they have it?
Yeah, they're real talented on offense. Really good center, I might add. And then, they have a couple key guys they try to channel the ball to.
Chris Peterson, you guys have known each other for quite a while now, haven't you?
Yeah, he's a great guy. Peterson's a great guy.
I know that he grew up with Bill Stevens, our SID, which is a key element. That's a huge part to the whole deal.
Well, he certainly overcame that, and and then Bill made him the man that he is today, and so there are some ties there. Bill and Chris Peterson both are from Yuba City, California, home of the Honkers. How about that?
The Honkers.
And if you ever drive down that interstate, you'll know why they're called the Honkers too, because as you drive down the interstate, it's flat and not particularly scenic, but there's all those rice fields. There's shotguns going off nonstop because it's a huge flyway for those geese, and it's great goose hunting. Not as good atmosphere, but you'll get a lot of geese if you hunt there.
I did not know that. I'll have to talk to Bill, and then should we ever cross paths at Media Day again with Chris Peterson, I want to ask him about
Chris,
that.
I wonder if he shot any geese. He certainly grew up by goose country.
I bet he hasn't been asked it at a press conference. I bet he has not been.
He probably needs to be.
Yeah, we could fire that up. How's their offensive line? To what degree are you aware of the Husky O-line? Their left tackle and their center are all pack level players, I know.
Yeah, they're always real big. They're always real big. I wish I had something to say. I mean, they look like they always do, to be honest with you.
Yeah, good players. All right, that's our opponent preview. We are running out of show, and I need to take one more break here before we get back to it. We can get that caller in from Gig Harbor and get some questions back in here before we run out of time. We're live here at Zeppo's with Coach Leach, Apple Cup Week.
Hey, I'm Kirk.
Call in line at 866-COOG-TALK. That's 1-866-268-4825. Now, back to the show.
Back here live at Zeppo's talking ball here, all kinds of things with Coach Leach. As always, we are into our final segment here. So there was a caller, Logan, was listening live in Gig Harbor, and he just called in and then kind of dropped the note, and he wants to listen as he hung up the phone. But what's the most exciting game you've ever coached in? And I suspect what he has in mind is, where does the Beaver game last Saturday kind of fall in that hierarchy for you when you're thinking about it?
Well, the Beaver game's way up there, and then a lot of people in the locker room kind of felt like it was the most exciting game they've been a part of. And it was definitely exciting, no question. You know, I mean, I guess the Utah game last year is an awfully exciting one. Beating UCLA at the Rose Bowl, almost the last play where we hit Gabe Marks. Luke hit Gabe, was an exciting one. And then there's some more that I'm leaving out. Iowa Wesleyan definitely had some exciting ones. Valdosta we did. I mean, beating Texas, number one in the nation, Texas, as they stormed the field 3 times, and we have to kick it off from the -7.
You kicked it off from the ends from the.
Well, what had happened? So we score the winning touchdown. They storm the field.
Yeah.
Okay, but then we have to kick the extra point. We kick the extra point, so then there's 50. Then we kick the extra point, and they storm the field. There's 50. And then some other where else there was another storming of the field. And anyway, so they stormed the field 3 times. So then there's a second or 2 left, which I do know some venues where there's not a chance in hell there'd be any time left in that situation. But they stormed the field 3 times. So then we're penalized. We have to kick off. And I told our kicker, I said, find a fat guy and kick it right at him. and which he did, and he did a good job of it too. And then that fat guy fielded it like a shortstop. I mean, this guy, he looked like Ozzie Smith out there with that ball dribbling. Scoops it right up and then pitches it to a real fast guy. And then the fast guy dropped it. He did not have the fielding skills the big man did.
Amazing. Hey, thank you so much. That's the signal. We got like 40 seconds left. Thanks to everybody who's here live at Zeppo's. Thanks to everybody who listened. To Jared Prengruber, does such a good job. Jerry Kylo gets us on the air. Jake Eisenberg's back in studio. 11 o'clock airtime. Apple Cup on Friday. Thank you, Coach, and happy Thanksgiving to everybody. And much thanks to Zeppo's. Does such a great job. Go Cougs.